The rain-slick streets of Malaga's old quarter gleamed like shattered glass under the street lamps, and Emma's heart shattered right along with them. She stood frozen in the doorway of the tiny tapas bar, the scent of garlic and saffron heavy in the air, as Ava's laughter, that bright, unguarded melody that had once been her lifeline, floated out from a shadowed corner booth. But it wasn't alone. It tangled with a man's voice, low and intimate, his hand brushing Ava's arm in a way that twisted the knife deeper. Emma's backpack, heavy with the weight of their shared dreams and her one-way ticket home, slipped from her shoulder and hit the cobblestones with a dull thud that no one else noticed. In that instant, the world narrowed to the betrayal etched on Ava's face when their eyes finally met. Shock, then guilt, then a plea that came too late. "Emma," Ava whispered, rising like a ghost from the table, but the word dissolved into the humid night, leaving only the echo of what they'd built crumbling into the seafoam gutters below. Emma had come to Spain chasing ghosts, or maybe just the ghost of herself, the version that laughed without reservation, loved without borders, and believed in second chances like they were as common as the siestas that blanketed Andalusia in lazy afternoons. At 28, she traded the relentless grind of her graphic design job in Brooklyn for a 6-month sabbatical, her savings scraped together from freelance gigs, and the kind of stubborn optimism that only New York winters could forge. Malaga wasn't Rome or Paris. It was raw Saltier, with its labyrinthine alleys whispering secrets of Moorish kings and forgotten flamenco dancers. But it felt right, like the first deep breath after holding it too long. She'd rented a cramped apartment above a bakery on Calle Granada, where the air always carried the warm yeast of fresh pan con tomate and the faint brine from the nearby port. Mornings started with black coffee on her tiny balcony, overlooking terracotta roof tiles that baked under the relentless sun, and evenings dissolved into the hum of street musicians strumming guitars that sounded like heartbroken lovers. Emma sketched in her notebook, bold lines of sun-bleached cliffs, the curve of a stranger's smile, trying to capture the freedom she'd lost somewhere between her parents' divorce and the string of half-hearted dates back home. It was on her third week, during a solo wander through the Picasso Museum, that she first saw Ava. The gallery was a cool refuge from the July heat, its white walls echoing with the soft shuffle of tourists. Emma lingered before a sketch of a woman's profile, the pencil strokes fierce and tender, when a voice cut through the hush like a sudden chord. "You know, he painted that one after a fight with his muse. Said it was the only way to make the pain beautiful." Emma turned, and there she was. Ava, mid-20s, with dark curls that framed her face like wild vines, olive skin glowing under the diffused light, and eyes the color of aged cognac, warm, but with a depth that hinted at storms long past. She wore a loose white blouse tucked into high-waisted jeans, a silver necklace catching the light like a secret. There was something effortlessly magnetic about her, a quiet confidence that made the room feel smaller, more alive. Emma smiled, her green eyes crinkling at the corners. "Pain into beauty? Sounds like every artist's excuse for a bad breakup." Ava laughed, a sound like bells in the wind, and extended her hand. "Ava Ruiz. Local guide, occasional troublemaker. And you? Not from around here, I can tell. The way you hold that sketchbook like it's a shield." "Emma Harper. From New York. Here to, I don't know, rediscover myself? Cliché, I know. Not cliché. Brave." Ava's gaze held hers, steady and searching, and in that moment, amid the angular faces on the walls, Emma felt seen. Not as the overachiever who'd burned out at 25, not as the daughter still mending from her mom's quiet unraveling after the divorce, but as someone worthy of a story yet unwritten. They talked for hours, spilling out onto the museum cafe where iced horchata sweated in the heat. Ava was 27, born in Malaga to a Spanish mother and an American father who'd met during his study abroad and never left. She ran bespoke tours for expats, hidden beaches, secret bodegas, the kind of Spain that guidebooks forgot. "Tourists chase the postcard," she'd say, her accent a melodic blend of Andalusian lilt and East Coast edge from summers in Jersey with her cousins. "I show them the soul." By sunset, they were walking the Paseo del Parque, palm trees swaying like old friends, the sea a shimmering expanse of indigo. Emma confessed her fears, the loneliness that had driven her across the ocean, the way love always seemed to slip through her fingers like sand. Ava listened, her hand brushing Emma's as they paused by a fountain, the water's murmur drowning out the distant traffic. "You're not alone in that," Ava said softly, her fingers lingering. I came out at 19 right after my dad bailed for good. Mom was supportive but the town. Small minds, big echoes. I learned to love fierce but guard it fiercer. Emma's breath caught. There it was, unspoken but electric, the shared language of women who'd loved women in worlds not always kind. When Ava leaned in, their lips meeting tentative and sweet under the jacaranda blooms, it wasn't fireworks. It was a quiet ignition, the kind that warms from within. That night, over gazpacho and shared plates of jamon at a hole in the wall near the cathedral, they traded stories like treasures. Emma spoke of her childhood in Queens, bike rides through Flushing Meadows, the Pride Parade where she'd first held a woman's hand in public. Ava shared tales of beach bonfires with her queer found family, the underground poetry slams where verses dripped with longing for bodies like theirs. Laughter wove through the ache, and by midnight, as they strolled back to Emma's apartment, hands intertwined, the city felt like it belonged to them. In the weeks that followed, Malaga became their canvas. Ava whisked Emma to the Chorro waterfalls, where they hiked mist-shrouded paths, the roar of water mirroring the rush in their chests. They picnicked on rooftops at dusk, feeding each other olives and manchego, Ava's head on Emma's lap as they watched stars prick the velvet sky. "You're my favorite sketch," Ava murmured one night, tracing Emma's collarbone with a fingertip. "All lines and light." Emma, who hadn't believed in soulmates since her last heartbreak, a barista named Riley who'd ghosted after 3 months, found herself unfolding. She sketched Ava endlessly, her profile against the Alhambra's arches in Granada, curls tangled by the wind on a ferry to Morocco's coast. Their love was a slow burn, built on stolen mornings in bed, bodies curving together in innocent tangle, whispers of futures that tasted like possibility. But shadows lingered. Ava's phone would buzz at odd hours, her face tightening as she silenced it. "Work stuff," she'd say, waving it off. Emma, fresh from her own scars, let it slide. Trust was a muscle she'd atrophied, but with Ava it flexed anew. One evening, after a day exploring the whitewashed villages of the Exarquia, they drove back in Ava's battered Fiat, windows down, reggae tone pulsing low. Emma's hand rested on Ava's thigh, a casual anchor, when Ava's phone lit up again. This time she answered, her voice shifting to rapid Spanish laced with tension. "¿Quién es?" "No, no puedo ahora." She glanced at Emma, mouthing sorry, but the call dragged on until they reached the city limits. "Who was that?" Emma asked later, as they unpacked groceries in the kitchen, the scent of ripe figs filling the air. Ava hesitated, then smiled too brightly. "Just an old client." "Nothing." Emma nodded, but the seed of doubt took root, tiny and insidious, like the cracks in the plaza's ancient tiles. As summer deepened, their rhythm solidified. Ava introduced Emma to her circle. Sophia, the tattooed barista with a penchant for queer lit, Mateo, the non-binary DJ who spun sets at underground clubs, and Lena, Ava's closest friend since childhood, whose wry humor masked a fierce protectiveness. Over bottles of Rioja at beachside gatherings, they shared the easy camaraderie of chosen family, toasting to love's quiet rebellions. Yet Emma noticed the absences. Ava vanishing for errands that stretched into evenings, returning with excuses as flimsy as sea glass. "Tour bookings," she'd say, collapsing into Emma's arms, her scent mingled with unfamiliar cologne. Emma pushed it down, burying it under the weight of their joy. The way Ava's laugh chased away her homesickness, the notes she'd leave on the fridge. "Me soul, don't forget the market," scrawled in looping script. By August, Emma's sabbatical was half gone, and the question loomed, stay or go? Over paella at a seaside finca, candlelight flickering on their faces, she broached it. "I could extend my visa," Emma said, her fork pausing midair. "Find work here. Design for local artists, maybe." Ava's eyes lit, but something flickered. Regret? Fear? "That sounds perfect. But there's something I need to tell you." The words hung, heavy as the humid air. Before she could continue, her phone vibrated again. She glanced at it, color draining from her cheeks. "Answer it," Emma urged, a knot forming in her gut. Ava stepped away, voice low and urgent. When she returned, her smile was fractured. Family drama. Nothing new. But Emma saw the lie in the way Ava's hands trembled as she poured more wine. That night, as they lay entwined on the balcony chaise, the seas whisper a lullaby, Emma held her closer, willing the truth to surface. It didn't. Instead, dreams came, of crumbling bridges over chasms, hands reaching but never quite touching. The hook of doubt tightened slowly, day by day, until one rain-lashed afternoon in September, Emma decided to surprise Ava at the tapas bar where she'd first heard that laugh. The door swung open and the world tilted. The man's name was Javier, though Emma wouldn't learn that until later, pieced together from fragments like a mosaic of hurt. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of easy charm that turned heads in Malaga's crowded markets. Dark hair slicked back, a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes that crinkled when he smiled, as if the world were one big inside joke. To Ava, he'd been a what-if from university days, a flirtation rekindled over coffee when Emma was back in New York for a family wedding in July. Just friends catching up, Ava would later plead, but the booth's intimacy, the way his knee brushed hers under the table, told a different story. Emma didn't scream. She didn't storm in or shatter plates like in the movies she binge-watched on rainy Brooklyn nights. Instead, she backed out, the door's bell tinkling like a mocking farewell, and ran. Not toward her apartment, but to the beach, where the Mediterranean's waves clawed at the shore like accusations. She kicked off her boots, the sand cold and gritty under her feet, and sank to her knees as sobs racked her body. The salt on her lips tasted like tears, like the ocean's indifference. How had she missed it? The late nights, the evasive glances, the way Ava's touch had grown hesitant, as if savoring a stolen moment. Emma had poured her soul into this, sketched their life in margins, whispered promises under starlit skies, and for what? A ghost from Ava's past. A man who represented the normal her family still nudged her toward at holiday dinners. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Ava, where are you? Please talk to me. Emma silenced it, hurling pebbles into the surf, each one a fragment of rage. By the time she trudged home soaked and shivering, the apartment felt hollow. A museum of their love, with Ava's scarf draped over the chair, half-finished sketches pinned to the wall. Ava was waiting on the stoop when Emma arrived, eyes red-rimmed, curls frizzed from the drizzle. Emma, it wasn't. Save it. Emma's voice cracked, raw as the wind off the straight. She shoved past, the door slamming like a guillotine. Inside, the argument erupted like a summer storm. Ava followed, words tumbling out in a torrent of Spanish-inflected English. Javier's getting married next month. To his fiancée. We were just reminiscing. Stupid, I know, but it meant nothing. Reminiscing. Emma whirled, green eyes blazing. His hand on your arm, your laugh like I wasn't even there? That's not nothing, Ava. That's erasure. Ava recoiled, tears spilling. I'm scared, okay? Of this of us. My mom's been hounding me about grandkids, the family legacy, all that bullshit. And Javier. He's safe. Predictable. But you? You make me feel alive, terrified, real. I panicked. The confession hung between them, a fragile bridge over the chasm. Emma wanted to believe it, to bridge the gap with forgiveness, but betrayal's sting was a live wire. You should have told me. From the start. Instead, you let me build castles on sand. They talked or argued, until dawn, voices hoarse, the rain a relentless percussion. Ava confessed the full weight. The cultural pressure of being the good daughter in a conservative pocket of Malaga, where queer love was whispered, not celebrated. Her father's abandonment had left scars, making her crave stability even as she yearned for chaos. Javier was a crutch, a way to appease the voices in her head. Emma listened, her heart a battlefield. She'd known similar wars, her mom's silent judgment after catching her with a girlfriend in high school, the aunt who still sent "Pray the Rainbow Away" articles. But trust, once fractured, didn't mend with words alone. I need space, Emma said finally, as the first light crept through the shutters. To think. To breathe. Ava nodded, broken. I'll wait. However long. She left, the door clicking softly, and Emma curled into the sheets that still smelled of jasmine and sea salt. Days blurred into a haze of solitude. She wandered Malaga's markets alone, bargaining for spices she didn't need. The vendors chatter a bomb and a barb. Sophia texted check-ins. She's a mess. Come to the bar? But Emma demurred, sketching instead dark, swirling forms that bled off the page. A week later, guilt pulled her to Ava's tour office, a sun-drenched space crammed with maps and Polaroids of smiling groups. Ava was there, poring over itineraries, her face lighting like sunrise when Emma entered. I miss you, Ava said simply, standing to close the distance. Emma held up a hand. Not yet. But, coffee. Neutral ground. They met at a cafe overlooking the Alcazaba, the ancient fortress a silent witness. Over cortados, Emma laid it bare. The hurt, the fear that love would always demand she shrink. Ava listened, then shared her own vulnerabilities, the therapy session she'd started last year, unpacking the internalized shame that made her sabotage the good. You're not a phase, Ava said fiercely, reaching across the table. You're my truth. Their fingers intertwined, tentative, and in that touch a spark reignited. Not the blaze of summer but a steady glow. They rebuilt slowly. Walks without destinations, letters slipped under doors, poetry readings where Ava's verses wove Emma's name into metaphors of light. By October, as leaves turned amber in the nearby hills, they were tentative lovers again. Ava introduced boundaries, no more exes, no more secrets, and Emma extended her visa, landing a gig designing logos for local wineries. Life settled into a rhythm. Mornings tangled in sheets, afternoons exploring hidden coves, evenings cooking paella with Sophia's tipsy laughter in the kitchen. But the fracture lingered, a hairline crack. During a weekend in Seville, amid the flamenco bars and orange-scented plazas, Ava's phone buzzed once more. She silenced it, but Emma saw the name Javier. Who? She asked, voice steady but edged. Ava sighed. He's reaching out. About the wedding invite. I haven't responded. Emma's stomach twisted. Burn it. Or let me see. Ava handed over the phone, trust a gift renewed. The message was innocuous. A group invite, polite nostalgia. But attached was a photo. Javier and his fiancée, beaming at an engagement party. And in the background, blurred but unmistakable, Ava arm linked with his, from that night at the Tapas bar. I went, Ava admitted, voice small. After our call. To say goodbye properly. Got complicated. Emma stood, the chair scraping like a wound reopening. Goodbye? Or temptation? She walked out into the rain-slick streets. Seville's magic soured. Back in Malaga, alone in the apartment she packed. Not everything, but enough to remind herself she could leave. Ava arrived at midnight, soaked eyes pleading. I ended it. For good. Blocked him, told my mom about us, everything. She cried but she hugged me. Said she'd always wanted me happy. The vulnerability cracked Emma's resolve. They fell into each other, not with passion's fire, but sorrow's depth. Tears mingling, apologies whispered like prayers. Winter crept in, mild but insistent, with winds that rattled the shutters. They faced it together. Holiday markets aglow with lights, shared scarves against the chill, Emma's family Zoom calls where Ava waved shyly from off-screen. Love deepened, roots burrowing past the hurt. Yet as spring bloomed, azahar perfuming the air, new shadows gathered. Emma's designs caught a New York agency's eye. A remote contract, lucrative, pulling her back across the ocean. 6 months, she said, torn. Then I return. Ava smiled, but her eyes held the sea's unrest. We'll make it work. Video dates, surprise visits. Emma believed her. They did for a while. Late-night calls over sangria and takeout, packages of sketches and pressed flowers crossing the Atlantic. But distance is a thief, stealing inches until miles gape. In June, Emma flew back for a visit, the reunion at Malaga Airport electric. Hugs that bruised, kisses that promised. But over dinner, Ava seemed distant, her laughter forced. What's wrong? Emma pressed, as they wandered the moonlit harbor. Ava stopped, the water lapping like confessions. I got an offer. A tour company in Barcelona, bigger, better pay. But it means leaving Malaga. Leaving us if timing's off. Emma's heart stuttered. We could go together. Make it our adventure. Ava shook her head, tears glistening. Your job's here now. And I don't know if I can keep chasing. The words landed like stones. In the quiet that followed, Emma saw it. The betrayal wasn't Javier's alone. It was fears, the kind that made them both run from the depth they'd found. Barcelona shimmered like a fever dream when Ava moved there in August. Her Fiat loaded with boxes of books, vinyl records, and the potted olive tree they'd nurtured on the balcony. Emma helped pack, her hands steady despite the ache. Driving the coastal road north in a rental car that hugged the curves like a reluctant goodbye. The journey was a tapestry of silences and songs. Old indie tracks from Emma's iPod, Ava's fingers drumming the wheel to the rhythm of unspoken fears. They arrived at dusk, the city unfolding in a blaze of gaudy spires and bustling ramblas. Ava's new apartment was a third-floor walk-up in Gracia, narrow but bright, with windows framing street artists and the distant hum of the Sagrada Familia's cranes. "It's a start," Ava said, unpacking a photo of them at the churro, smiling sun-dappled, oblivious. Emma stayed a week, their days a whirlwind of adjustment. Job interviews for her in the design scene. Nights exploring tapas dens where Paembi Tamaket replaced Jaman. Love felt fragile, like the stained glass in the cathedral, beautiful, but one crack from shattering. On her last morning, as they lingered over café con leche on the terrace, Ava's voice broke the hush. "I love you, Emma. But it's like holding water. Slipping." Emma reached for her hand. "Then let's build a better cup. Together." Ava nodded, but the doubt lingered, a specter in her cognac eyes. Back in New York, the city swallowed Emma whole. The agency gig was a grind, endless revisions, fluorescent-lit offices in Midtown that hummed with ambition's edge. She threw herself into it, sketching concepts for ad campaigns that bled into her dreams, but nights were hollow. Video calls with Ava became lifelines, then chores. Time zones clashing, exhaustion etching lines around their smiles. "You're glowing," Emma would say, forcing cheer as Ava described guiding groups through Park Güell, the mosaics mirroring her vibrant tales. But Ava's updates grew sparse, new friends at the tour company, a poetry circle that met in candlelit cellars. "It's inspiring," she'd say, and Emma would nod, ignoring the twinge of exclusion. Fall arrived with a vengeance, leaves carpeting Central Park in crimson regret. Emma's mom visited for Thanksgiving, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Over turkey and cranberry in the cramped Queen's kitchen, she cornered Emma by the sink. "You look lost, kiddo. Is it the girl in Spain?" Emma scrubbed a pot harder than needed. "It's complicated. Distance mostly." Mom's hand on her shoulder was gentle, calloused from years waitressing. "Love's not a postcard. It's the mess in between. If she's worth it, fight dirty." The words echoed during Emma's next call when Ava canceled, a late tour running over. "Tomorrow," she suggested, but tomorrow became next week, then a vague soon. Panic set in. Emma booked a flight for Christmas, surprise unannounced, her heart a drumbeat of hope. Malaga first to revisit their roots, then Barcelona. The plane touched down in a balmy December. The Costa del Sol's warmth a balm. She rented a scooter zipping through familiar alleys, the wind whipping her auburn waves. The tapas bar was unchanged, its lantern swaying like old confidants. Inside, the air was thick with laughter and the sizzle of chorizo. Emma scanned the room, breath catching at Ava's booth. Empty now, but the ghost of that night lingered. She found her at the beach instead, walking the shore alone, skirt hemmed by foam. "Ava!" Ava turned, shock blooming into joy, then something guarded. They embraced, salt and surprise mingling. But as they walked, words faltered. "I've missed this," Emma said, linking arms. "Us. The real stuff." Ava's smile was soft, strained. "Me too. But New York. It's pulling you back. Not if you come with me. Or I stay. We figure it." "Emma, stop." Ava halted, the sea's roar underscoring her words. "I can't. The job, my life here. It's more than I thought. And you're building something huge. Don't stall for me." The rejection landed soft, but it stung. "Is this about Javier? Or fear again?" Ava's eyes flashed. "No. It's about truth. I love you, but I'm not built for oceans. Not anymore." They parted with a hug that felt final. Emma boarding the train to Barcelona with a heart leaden as stone. The city greeted her with festive lights and the scent of roasting chestnuts, but joy eluded. Ava met her at the apartment, dinner waiting, paella her specialty, but the air crackled with unspoken ends. Over wine, confessions spilled. Ava admitted the poetry circle. A woman named Clara, sharp-witted and unapologetically queer, who'd become more than a friend. "It started innocent," Ava whispered, tears carving paths down her cheeks. "Shared verses, late talks. But it woke something. Reminded me I don't have to choose safe." Emma's world tilted. Betrayal round two. Not a man this time, but the ghost of possibility. So I'm the interlude? The American fling before you settle into. What? No. Ava grasped her hands. You're everything. But I can't keep hurting you. Or me. The night dissolved into raw honesty. Screams that echoed off the tiles, sobs that shook the bed. Emma raged at the unfairness. How love demanded perfection. How her queerness had always come with asterisks. Ava defended, voice breaking. The weight of cultural expectations, the therapy breakthroughs that urged her to claim her desires without apology. By dawn, exhausted, they lay side by side, not touching. What now? Emma murmured. Ava turned, eyes searching. Go home. Heal. If it's real, it'll find us. Emma left 2 days later. Barcelona's spires blurring through tears on the cab ride to the airport. New York welcomed her with sleet and subway delays, the agency piling on deadlines like weights. She threw herself into work, dates with apps that fizzled, runs along the Hudson where the river's flow mocked her stagnation. Months passed in a blur. Spring's thaw bringing cherry blossoms to the park, but no warmth to her core. Sophia emailed sporadically. Ava's thriving but asks about you. Emma deleted them, sketching instead. Abstract grief, waves crashing against unyielding rock. Then in May a package arrived, unmarked, postmarked from Spain. Inside, a leather-bound journal, pages filled with Ava's handwriting. Poems of cliffs and cognac eyes, of a love that felt like the first rain after drought. Tucked in the back, a ticket. Round trip to Malaga, open-ended. Emma's hands trembled. She called Ava that night, voice thick. Why? Because, Ava said, soft as sea glass. I was wrong. Distance wasn't the thief. Fear was. Come back. Let's rewrite this. Emma arrived in June, the summer sun a promise. They met at the Chorro again, the waterfalls a thunderous chorus. No grand gestures, just hands clasped, stories swapped like missing pieces. Rebuilding was tentative. Therapy together via Zoom with a Barcelona counselor. Boundaries etched in stone. Ava quit the poetry circle. Emma negotiated remote work. They dreamed aloud of a life split between coasts, a small design studio in Malaga. Adoptions whispered in future tense. But peace was fleeting. In August, Javier resurfaced, not for Ava but drama. His wedding imploded, scandals splashed in local tabloids. He called Ava drunk and desperate, begging for old times. She hung up, but the call shook her, old insecurities rising like tide. Emma found her on the balcony that night, staring at the sea. He said, I'm the one who got away. That you were a mistake. Emma pulled her close. You're not a mistake. You're mine. Yet doubt festered. Whispers from Ava's family, settled down properly, clashed with their truth. One evening after a tense dinner with Ava's mom, who smiled tightly through toasts, Emma snapped. Is this enough? For you? For them? Ava's face crumpled. I don't know. God, Emma, I want it to be. But sometimes. The sometimes was a chasm. They fought, words like shrapnel. Accusations of clinging, fears of losing self. Emma stormed out, wandering the night markets, the crowd's anonymity a cold comfort. She ended up at the Picasso, that first meeting ground, sitting before the muse sketch. Pain into beauty. Her phone buzzed. Ava. Come home. Please. She did, and they talked till stars wheeled overhead, raw, unfiltered. I can't lose you, Ava sobbed. But I can't lose me either. Then don't, Emma said, fierce. We're not halves. We're whole, tangled. Fall brought tests. A queer film festival in Madrid, where they held hands unapologetically amid cheering crowds. A trip to New York, Ava meeting Emma's mom over dim sum, bonds forging in shared stories of resilience. By winter, love felt earned, scarred but stronger. They bought rings, simple silver bands engraved with "Me Soul," worn on chains around necks when apart. Plans solidified. Emma's full move to Spain, a joint tour design venture blending Ava's paths with Emma's art. The proposal came on a cliffside near Nerja, where the sea hurled itself against chalk-white rocks in eternal defiance. It was January, the air crisp with the promise of renewal, wildflowers nodding in the sparse grass despite the chill. Emma had planned it meticulously. A picnic of Ava's favorites. Empanadas from the market, chilled cava. A sketchbook filled with visions of their future home. A sunlit villa with a studio overlooking the waves. Ava arrived windswept from a morning hike, cheeks flushed, curls escaping her knit beanie. "What's all this?" she laughed, dropping to the blanket, but her eyes caught the glint in Emma's gaze. Emma knelt, heart pounding like the surf below. "Ava Ruiz, you crashed into my world like a storm I didn't know I needed. You taught me love isn't safe. It's the risk, the raw edges, the choice to stay when it hurts. Marry me. Build this mess with me." Ava's breath hitched, tears welling as she pulled the ring from its velvet nest. A sapphire flanked by diamonds, evoking Mediterranean depths. "Yes," she whispered, slipping it on with trembling fingers. 1,000 times yes. They kissed as the sun dipped, painting the horizon in fire. The oceans roar a wedding vow. It wasn't perfect. Doubts lingered like distant thunder. But in that embrace they chose each other, flaws and all. Spring unfurled in a cascade of milestones. Emma's visa converted to residency. Her New York ties severed with a final agency handover. They leased the villa in Frigiljana, a white village perched in the mountains, its narrow streets a labyrinth of bougainvillea and hidden patios. Renovations became their love language. Painting walls in soft ochre, installing shelves for Ava's poetry books, a skylight in the studio where Emma's sketches danced in natural light. Ava's tours evolved, queer-focused itineraries that wove Andalusia's hidden histories. The lesbian poets of Granada's golden age, beach retreats for chosen families. Emma designed the branding. Bold logos of interlocking waves, taglines like "Paths Untrodden," "Hearts Unbound." Bookings flooded in. Their first group a mix of wide-eyed Americans and bold Europeans, laughter echoing on sunset sails. Family bridges mended unevenly. Ava's mom visited in April, bearing olive oil from the family grove and tentative questions about the wedding. Over lunch on the terrace with the Sierras a jagged backdrop, she clasped Emma's hand. "You make her shine. That's enough for me." Emma's mom flew in for Pride in June, Malaga's parade a riot of rainbows and reggaeton, where they marched arm in arm, Ava's sign reading "Love Knows No Borders." That night, over rooftop sangria, moms bonded over stories of daughters who defied expectations, toasting to the women they'd become. But peace demanded vigilance. Javier's shadow resurfaced in summer. A letter postmarked from Madrid, spilling regrets and pleas for forgiveness. Ava read it aloud to Emma, voice steady, then burned it in the fireplace, ashes scattering to the breeze. "He's the past. You're the map." Emma's own ghost stirred too. A New York ex, Riley, emailing about old times, after spotting her portfolio online. Emma forwarded it to Ava, unflinching. "See? We're in this." Therapy continued, bi-weekly sessions via video with their counselor, unpacking the betrayals that had nearly undone them. "Trust isn't blind," the therapist would say, her voice calm as chamomile. "It's chosen daily." They practiced. Weekly check-ins over coffee, jars of notes, grievances and gratitudes, emptied on hard days. The wedding planning was a joyful chaos. A small ceremony in the village chapel, vows exchanged under olive boughs, reception in the plaza with flamenco and fairy lights. Guests numbered 30, Sophia DJing sets that blended indie folk with Spanish guitar, Mateo officiating with rye poetry, Lena toasting to the love that outruns fear. On the day, august heat shimmering like mirage, Emma waited at the altar in a linen suit the color of sea foam, auburn hair pinned with wildflowers. Ava appeared in a flowing gown of ivory lace, dark curls crowned with jasmine, her stride sure as she took Emma's hand. Their vows were poetry etched in vulnerability. "Emma, you saw me whole when I was fractured, loved me through the storms. I promise to be your anchor, your wind, always choosing us. Ava, you taught me courage in the quiet moments, truth in the tears. I'll hold you fierce, forgive freely, build our forever one breath at a time." The kiss sealed it, cheers rising like waves, the village bells pealing in harmony. Life post-vows was no fairy tale epilogue. It was chapters unfolding. They launched the business fully, traveling for inspiration, Lisbon's tiled streets, Berlin's queer archives, returning to Frigiljana with ideas that sparked late-night sketches and tour maps. Adoption talks grew serious. Papers filed for a child from local foster care, dreams of a nursery overlooking the hills. Conflicts arose, human as heartbeats. A slow season strained finances, tempers flaring over budgets until they laughed through tears, pooling savings for a rainy day paella. Ava's wanderlust clashed with Emma's nesting, resolved in compromise hikes where paths met. One winter eve as snow dusted the Sierras, a rarity, they sat by the fire, a toddler's photo on the coffee table. Maria, 5, with braids and a gap-toothed grin, matched to them after months of visits. "She's ours," Ava whispered, head on Emma's shoulder. Emma nodded, tears pricking. "Ours." Years wove forward. Maria's first steps on the beach, her laughter mingling with the surf, school plays where Emma designed costumes, Ava narrated tales of brave women. Betrayals faded to lessons, love a tapestry richer for its threads. On their 10th anniversary, back on that Nerja cliff, gray now streaking their hair but eyes undimmed, Emma pulled Ava close. "I'm fine," she whispered as tears traced familiar paths. Ava cupped her face, thumb brushing a droplet. "Don't cry." Emma smiled, voice thick. "I'm crying because love finally felt real." And in the sunset's embrace, with the sea eternal witness, it did, raw, resilient, profoundly theirs.